I am going to just bring in a sampler. This is Ableton's basic sampler device. After this, we're gonna put an EQ and a compressor. Now you're gonna grab a sound, and it can be pretty much any sound, and you're gonna put it in the sampler. I'm gonna use something from my new sample pack just to promo my sample pack a bit. Space Slime, it's on Splice. But let's choose something that's as far away from an 808 as possible. Like how about a hi-hat? Sure, first one I grab, drag the sample in. Now we're gonna click loop, and we're going to drag this loop region in super small. We're gonna zoom way in, basically making this a single cycle waveform. That sounds pretty good. So it's just looping a tiny piece of this sound and turning it into an oscillator. Now we're gonna do a couple things with the amplitude envelope and the pitch envelope. Amplitude envelope's gonna look like this, just like tiny bit more attack than the rest of the sustain and release. Actually, we'll do a pretty short release as well. And then a similar shape on the pitch envelope. I'll turn this amount up. And you can like drag this decay to taste. So what we're doing here is actually pretty cool. You're mimicking how a real drum behaves.
Operator, first we're gonna shape it. We're turning down the sustain all the way, and we're messing with the decay. Increase the release, just to get our shape. So right now we just have the bass shape. That's the basic shape of it. You notice 808s have more of a punch at the beginning. I'm gonna turn on this pitch envelope. And I'm gonna turn it up. Here, you can adjust the peak. So you want to hit that sweet spot. Keep adjusting the pitch envelope because you want to get that initial transient. From there, operator is cool. You can adjust it with the time knob, which is like a dry wet for all the effects. So as you turn this up, it's making the pitch envelope more extreme, making the release more extreme, the sustain, everything. Play around with it.
Here, I'm actually going to add some of the upper harmonics via the partial grid here in the wave shaper in Ableton. And what this does is, if you're familiar with the harmonic signature, it adds, what I'm doing here is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th harmonic signature above my root note, which is going to kind of just thicken up the sound just a little bit in a very subtle way. It's not really going to change the way that it sounds. Now, the oscillator above it is another simple sine wave, just running right into that one, but not very much. Now, just like what I've done with the partial grid, this is also going to just add some extra upper harmonics and thicken out my sound without really changing the way that my sound comes across. So let me show you a comparison between a basic sine wave and the one that we've created here. So a basic sine wave in the sub range sounds kind of like this. There's a little bit of a pitch envelope on there, but it's not really generating too much there. Now, when I adjust my parameters here to add the harmonics that I had before, we should notice that it's not so much of a pure tone anymore, and we do get a little more rumble to the sound than we had before. You guys notice that?
Let's do it. We're going to drag in a sample, just a drum sample, into an audio track in Ableton. So this is the sample. So we've got it in there, and what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it, and we're going to go down to convert drums to new MIDI track. There's a few other ones here, and they're all very powerful, really awesome. This is a great feature of Ableton, but we'll convert drums to a new MIDI track, and what's going to happen is it creates a MIDI track for you with a drum rack in it. If you're not familiar with Ableton yet and drum racks, a drum rack is a nice feature that you can plug all of your drums into and have control over effects and various other aspects of each drum sound within one track, one MIDI track. So we've got it pulled over. We'll give this a listen, and it just put in just a basic drum rack. It automatically comes up with that. So it's the same beat. You can hear, just with different drums. So the first thing I'm going to show you is maybe you just want to take the hi-hats from this particular pattern because you're not the best at doing hi-hats. Well, that's so easy, right? We can just, I'll just do this. I'll just show you. I'll actually just duplicate this track here. And just delete all the stuff you don't want, right? Let's say you just want the hi-hats, just delete everything else. And the really cool part about this is everything is retained, like all the velocities and all the different characteristics of this particular loop that made it nice. Let me shut this other one off. So you just have the hi-hats.